Well, this past week, I took my family to Zion National Park. I know that many of you have a hard time understanding the job of being a pastor because many of you just wonder in your mind, what in the world do you do during the week, right? Like you think that this is a one day a week kind of gig. I'm up here on Sunday mornings, but Easter is very taxing, okay? It would be like if you are an accountant or in the tax season, like the height of the busy season for a pastor. And so we thought it would be good to just get away with the family to rest and recover. But let's just be really honest, family vacation is not restful in the slightest. It's just not. And we were originally supposed to go skiing. We had a ski trip booked to Colorado. But if you're a skier in the house, you know that Colorado has had very poor snowfall. And so they actually closed the resort that we were going to. And so we pivoted. We said we're going to go to Zion. Because for me, personally, nothing resets my heart and soul like being in the mountains. There's something so beautiful and something so just majestic about the mountains that resets me as a dude. I'm like, I am in awe of what is around me. And so this is my family in the Narrows. This is my beautiful wife, Cody. If you've never met my wife, Cody, she's incredible. She's typically up here leading worship every single week. And then I have two beautiful children, Ellington and Ezra. Ezra is my son. He is 6. And Ellington, my daughter, she is 9. We had her literally a week or the week after we launched or before we launched, I can't remember it, the church. So she is special, and we marked the age of the church by Ellie. And we decided Zion National Park was the place we were going to go. Now, for context, the Narrows is about the number 5 currently ranked in all of the United States for hiking. This particular hike. And you're about 2,000 feet down in a canyon, hiking upward on the Virgin River. You're hiking through this incredible canyon, and the views are absolutely incredible. Now, I don't know how to explain the fact that hiking with children is difficult. It just is. It wasn't just my family, it was my brother-in-law and sister-in-law and their 2 kids, and then my cousin and his kid, and we were going through there. So we had 5 kids. And if you ask ChatGPT, should you do the Narrows with kids, it would just tell you, no, you shouldn't do it. The water at this particular time, we're in waders right there. The water at the particular time is around 40 degrees. So it's cold water. But it is an epic journey because you just feel like you're a little kid again, kicking through this riverbed. And it's allowed, right? And so as we journey through the Narrows, Ezra could not comprehend why he needed to hold Dad's hand. He could not understand why that was significant because he would look at his sister Ellie, who would be out in front and with her mom journeying through, and she wasn't holding Mom's hand, and neither were any of the other kids. That's what happens whenever you're the youngest. And he didn't understand it. And so I'm holding his hand through a current going upstream as we are journeying through the Narrows. And so he kept asking, Dad, why do I have to hold your hand? I'm like, son, you're going to go downstream if I don't hold your hand. He's like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, okay, fine. Like any good parent, said, let's see what happens then. So eventually, we got to a particular point in the river, and he's like, I got this. I'm like, okay, dude, go for it. Do your thing. He gets into the water. He had his own little hiking stick with him, and he starts going, and immediately he falls down. Now, whenever you're in waders, again, if you've never worn them, there's a clear gap that goes all the way down, right? So this front is completely exposed. He was in a little hoodie. He falls down. 40-degree water, pretty cold. All of the cold plungers in the house, you're like, that's my dream. But as soon as he goes down, he falls, and he just screams out, Dad! And I'm like, I told you, bro. Like, I was like, what did you think was going to happen? And so I pick him up by his waders and get him out of the water, and then we kept going on, and he did this multiple times. It was like 4 times he was like insistent on me not holding his hand. And every single time I let go of his hand, he went under the water. Every single time. Now, I tell you that this morning because This is exactly what it looks like for us to travel and journey in our relationship with God. That our call as humanity is to walk with our Father, to hold his hand essentially. And every single time we let go of his hand, we fall. If I were to slip out of the story of the Narrows and place you back into the text of Genesis, all the way at the beginning, this is exactly what we have the picture of. In Genesis, God creates the heavens and the earth. He creates man and he creates female, specifically in his image. And we were created as human beings, as humanity, to not only have relationship with the Father, but to partner with him in cultivating what he had created. And so in the cool of the garden, Adam and Eve were there, and they were given dominion over the garden so that they might partner with God. But something happens. Eve and Adam let go of their father's hands. And when they let go, they sought to take control for themselves. And they took of the fruit of the one tree God said, this is off limits. And when they did, shame and sin entered into the narrative, fracturing our relationship with our Father. And just like my son went underneath the water, just like my son fell in that river, we fell. All of humanity fell whenever we decided to take things into our own control. And so sin enters into the narrative in this particular moment, and all throughout the Old Testament, we see time and time again us as human beings doing our best to take control of things. And every single time we try to take control of things, we fall. And this is the price of sin that has entered into the narrative, that has broken our relationship with our Father, that has separated us from him. But God did not leave us in our sin. In fact, as we look at the text, God intervenes. And in Genesis chapter 3, we have one of the first echoes of the gospel. You see, the gospel is the story that we are situated in right here, right now. It's not a fairy tale story, it is a historical story. It is a story of the man who came to die for our sins. He is Lord, ruler of all. But in Genesis 3, he does not leave us hanging out to dry. Instead, he comes into the rescue. He comes to the rescue, and we hear the first echoes of the gospel. That there's to be a man who would come from the seed of David, and he is the one that with his heel would crush the head of the serpent. This is a moment that we see the gospel, the first introduction to the gospel, the rescue story of the God of heaven who said, I'm not going to leave you in your sin and in your shame. I'm not going to leave you in your brokenness. Because the reality that we all are experiencing now, it's what theologians call as glorious ruins. That we together, because of sin that has entered into the narrative, are glorious ruins. It's as if you were driving somewhere and you saw a broken down castle, if you could just picture it for a moment. It's got weeds growing over the rocks, and it does not seem like it is a place that is livable anymore. But you ask yourself the question, who is that castle for? What was its original intent? What was its original purpose? Who lived there at one point? Because it's glorious, but it's still a ruin. And this is the picture of humanity right here, right now. Glorious. We are made in the image of God, yet because of sin, we are fractured. So we are ruined because of the sin that is coursing through our veins. And so we do not reflect the Father the way that we should, but instead we need the remedy of the Father to come and heal our hearts and our souls again so that we can be restored to our original intent. This is a great quote from Albert Walters. He says this. He says, what was formed in creation and has been historically deformed by sin must be reformed in Christ. This is the problem that all of us feel and all of us are experiencing to date, that we have been deformed by sin, and we are doing our best as human beings to fix it. We're doing our best as human beings to put the pieces back together so that the reflection that we see in the mirror begins to make sense again. Yet, all of our energy and effort fails us. You know this, I know this. There's no amount of money that you can make in your bank account that's going to fix it. There's no amount of relationships that you can have that is going to fix it. There's no amount of success in your job and your academics that can fix it. We're all chasing something so that we could fix the void and the ache that we have in our heart. Problem is that we cannot save ourselves. As we're paying attention to this series, we're going to be talking about, first and foremost, salvation. That this was God's plan for humanity, that we would be saved by Him. And the Apostle Paul writes in the book of Romans specifically to a unique context. What's happening in this moment is that there are Jewish believers who had gone away, but now they're welcoming them back into these particular churches. But the problem is that they are Gentile-led. There are leaders and believers who are now been overran with Gentiles. And you're like, that doesn't mean anything to me. The Gentiles were those who were marginalized, those who were not considered to be God's specific elect like the Jews were because of who their heritage was. The Gentiles were those who were far away from God. But thanks be to the gospel, as Paul writes, that the gospel is for everyone. And so now these Gentile believers are in the church and they're leading it, and the Jewish believers come back in and they are trying to earn their own righteousness. And Paul is saying you cannot do that. You see, their status and their in their minds, they were feeling like they were above everybody else because of their lineage, because of their education, and because as they grew up, they would have been people who were studying the scriptures. They would have been attending the temple. They were the ones who would have gotten all of the gold stars in the Sunday school class. And yet, Paul, please hear me when I say this, Paul says you still missed salvation. So let me give a very clear warning at the start. You can be in church for decades and miss salvation. It's one of the greatest tragedies that I think is happening in America today, because you can walk through those doors, you can sit here week after week listening to a message that you hear from a platform, and you can still miss salvation. That's what Paul is saying here. He says you are seeking your own righteousness separate from God. The righteousness that Christ has given to us is righteousness that is by grace through faith, not via your effort. Which is a scary thing to think about, because that means you can religiously attend every single Sunday morning gathering that we have. You can participate in wake houses week in and week out. You could read a devotional book every single morning, because that's exactly how the Jews were participating in their religious activity, and yet they still miss salvation. Which is why I try to preach the way that I preach, so that you understand that you could sit here and still miss the God of the universe. You can be in proximity to Him and still miss Him. And so he says to the Jewish believers, he says, you're seeking a self-righteousness of your own. It's ignorant. Do not do that. And then the other cultural piece that's the background piece of this is that there were those in the church that believed that their government could save them, that peace would come through the Roman government. And Paul, again, is just saying no to that. He's saying this salvation comes by faith and faith alone. This salvation is a gift from God, and there is no earning it. There is only receiving it. Okay. it's important that we all recognize that when it comes to salvation, we cannot save ourselves. We cannot save ourselves. It's interesting, there was an incredible art installation that got put up not too long ago. The title of it was called Can't Help Myself. It's a piece of modern art, and they have a video for you. It's a robotic arm. It's an industrial arm, mechanical, placed inside of a glass box. At the center of the box, there is this red liquid that surrounded the robotic arm. It looks like blood. It's kind of gory, to be honest. And the robot arm was trained to simply do its best to scoop all of the liquid back to itself. It's actually really fascinating because in some ways the robotic arm is precise. In some ways it's actually pretty beautiful to watch as this arm continuously pulls the liquid back to itself. But the creator of this put one small design flaw in the robotic arm, and that is at the center of the arm, it would leak fluid. The same fluid that it was trying to scoop back to itself with every ounce of effort and energy that it exhausted itself with. Every single time it got scooped to itself, it would leak back out onto the floor. Eventually, the arm stopped working. Eventually, it grew tired and it shut down. This is the picture of humanity. Every single hour that you've worked, scooping back to yourself. Every single time you've ran to alcohol. Every single time you've run to an addiction. Every single time you've tried to save yourself, every single time you say to yourself, I'm gonna get it right this time, all you are doing with all of your energy and all of your effort is scooping the fluid back to yourself without realizing that your soul is leaking. And Paul is saying that salvation is something that we cannot earn on our own. Instead, the writer of Romans, Paul, he says that we were dead in our sin, that there was nothing that we could do to earn salvation. And yet some of us look like this week in and week out in churches across America, just trying to make things happen, just trying to make things work, just trying to get through the week, just trying to get to the weekend, just trying to numb ourselves one more time, just trying to do something else so that our soul could be numb to the reality that we cannot save ourselves. And I'm just here to tell you that there is an answer. There is a remedy, but it comes at the moment that you recognize that you cannot save yourself. It comes at the moment of surrender when you recognize that no amount of energy and effort, no amount of perfection, no amount of projection, no amount of any effort that you could put into it could save you. It's fascinating to me that Paul calls out the Jewish believers this way. They would have had the Torah memorized. Do you have the first 5 books of the Bible memorized? Or are you struggling just to read one verse a day? All of Scripture memorized. And he said, you still miss salvation. Are you trying to earn your way to salvation this morning? And if you are, then please hear me when I say this. Are you exhausted yet? Are you so tired of trying to do this thing your way? Because that is the picture of what it looks like when we let go of the Father's hand. We fall into our own sin. We fall into our own ways. We fall into our own proclivities time and time again. But the Father is looking at us saying, I still love you. I still care for you. And I still long for you. And salvation is available freely, a gift. There's no achieving it. All you have to do is receive it. And it is by grace, through faith, that we receive this salvation. So pay attention. if this is the state of humanity, if we all feel like our souls are leaking out onto the floor and we cannot save ourselves, then what is the answer? The answer is Jesus and Jesus alone. You see, last weekend we celebrated the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The cross of Jesus Christ is the answer. But the cross alone is not just the answer. It is his death, it is his burial, and thanks be to God, it is his resurrection that purchases new life for us. You see, you have to recognize that on the cross, the sin that is coursing through our veins was satisfied. I don't know if you recognize this, but the wrath of God was coming for us like an 18-wheeler down 45, barreling down on us. And Christ on the cross was the one that stood in our place. This is the big church word of propitiation, substitutionary atonement. It is the substitute. He is the one that took our place. He is the one that died in our place. You see, because the sin that's in your life, the thing that fills you with shame, is the thing that Christ died for upon the cross. And in that moment, as Jesus hung on the cross, justice was served. You see, sin needed a penalty. And that penalty was found in Jesus' death upon the cross. Not only that, but he was the one, because of love, that's decided to step in to take our place. And so the sin that is coursing through our veins, that causes our souls to leak, is dead and gone by the power of Jesus Christ because of his death, his burial, and resurrection. And when you place your faith in Jesus Christ, the hole in your soul that causes all of the fluids to leak is filled. It's made whole again. And you're not just saved from something, but you're saved into something, which is the family of God. And now you've been given a new identity. You've been given new activity. And so now follow him with all of your heart. This is what salvation looks like. It's full surrender at the moment you realize that you cannot save yourself. It's the moment that my son goes under the water and he says, "Dad," because he recognizes, I can't save myself. And some of you have never come to that place. The makeup of true salvation, as I close, is this. It's belief in who Jesus is. It's trusting in what he's done. And it's obeying what he says. You see, some of you have grown up in church and you believe in Jesus. You think, historically, yes, Jesus walked this earth. You have belief in him. You maybe even think that he's miraculous. You might even think that he's sent from God, which is exactly what the Pharisees thought as well. But belief alone is not enough, according to the book of James. Even the demons believe in God. There is a trust component that is there. It is trusting in what he has done, meaning trusting the finished work of the cross. Which means that when you wake up in the morning and you're faced with your sin and shame starts telling you all of the things that you've done and you start feeling really bad about yourself. When anxiety and when insecurities and all of the things start flooding in, you recognize, hey, Christ died for all of that. And because he died for all of that, I'm now a son and daughter of the Most High God. So shame, you can shut up now because my Father sent his son to die for that. And because I trust in the work of the cross, I recognize that I'm a new creation, and I recognize that that is no longer how my story gets to be written, but instead my story gets to be written by his son and his sacrifice for me. But the last part is obedience. So I think a lot of us have belief, and I think a lot of us have trust, but the obedience part is where everybody seems to get tripped up at. Because some of you take obedience and you put it way before salvation, which is what the Jewish people did in this text. I'm obeying the things of God. I'm obeying him so that I can earn my way to salvation. But that is not the motivation for the believer. The true motivation of the believer is I get my eyes locked on the cross of Jesus Christ, and I recognize that I am not worthy of the sacrifice that he made for me. And I see the love that he has for me. And out of an overflow of the love that I now have for him, I obey him with my full heart and my full life. Obedience is not a way for you to earn salvation. Obedience is a standpoint of you recognizing what you have been saved from. But here's the problem with many of us, is that when it comes to true salvation, it is a place of full surrender and fully living our lives out. But many of us think his words are optional. They're not optional, friends. Which is why we're having such a difficult time in our culture today to understand what it is to truly follow Christ. Because we come into the church and we're looking for Christians, we're looking for believers to set an example for us. And yet, many of us are playing games with God in regards to our obedience to him. And we just start looking back to God and saying, hey God, that seems optional. I'm gonna let go of your hand and I'm gonna do this my way. And every single time we do that, we fall. Which is why it's so difficult. Because you're like, we're all broken, we're all flawed. Yes, we are all sinners who have fallen short of the glory of God. But my friends, if your life has been marked by salvation, there should be a complete and utter sellout for the things of God, and everything in your life should be changing. You don't get to pick and choose your obedience. You don't do that with your children, so why do that with God? When he calls us to obey, we obey the full weight of scriptures. So when he calls us into holiness, we move towards holiness. When he calls us into generosity, we move towards generosity. When he calls us into community, we don't make it optional, we move towards community. When he calls us into purity, we don't make excuses, we move towards purity because we have been saved. And furthermore, please recognize this. When you come to the place your eyes are open to the beauty of the gospel, you recognize that the liquid on the floor will never satisfy your heart and soul. And you don't move to those things anymore. If you're the alcoholic who's dropped the alcohol because you found Christ, you recognize that there's nothing for you at the end of that bottle. When you place your faith in Jesus Christ, everything changes. So my friends, ask yourself the question today, what are you trusting? What are you running to save you today? If it's not Jesus Christ, then today is a perfect opportunity for salvation to find your heart, because he's standing at your door knocking, saying, I'm here, I love you, I care for you, and I long for you to be in right relationship with me. All you have to do is believe in your heart, as Romans 10 tells us, and confess with your mouth that he is Lord.